Well, season 3 of Reacher has dropped, and it was awesome to say the least. If you've been a fan of the show since the beginning, I can't really think of a reason why you would not have liked this season. I wouldn't say I was worried about this season of the show, but I was hoping for a bit of an upswing from last season. And that's not to say I didn't like season 2, I did. But after the fantastic first season, I felt last year had a bit of a forced Avengers feel to it,
We're putting the band back together.
and I just like season 1 a lot more. The question is, did season 3 top season 1? In this video, I'll briefly go over some of the plot points. We'll look at the characters along for the ride this year, and finally score this thing out and see if it ended up being the
best season ever!
Now this season starts off like the previous ones. Reacher's in a small town, just going about his business. Here he's trying to unload some vinyl records to a store owner. For some reason, the guy wasn't impressed with Ethel Merman's disco album. But Reacher, as usual, has an answer and explains that in a hipster college town, these records will fly off the shelves.
It's like I don't even know Arcade Fire anymore.
As the negotiation continues, Reacher sees a ratty truck pull up. He notices that something seems off about the whole situation, and a truck ends up plowing into a car that just picked up a kid from school. Reacher's there to save the day, but a shootout ensues, and Reacher, unknowingly, kills a cop. When this went down, my first thought was, how the hell is he going to get out of this one? As the episode progresses, we see the first plot twist take place, and I loved how they revealed this. It explained everything in detail and set up the rest of the season in a good way. I've seen some people brag about how they saw the twist coming a mile away and they weren't impressed. Okay, Columbo. It also introduced us to Reacher's new crew for the season, Duffy, Elliot, and Villanueva. All right, let's get into Duffy and the elephant in the room.
You're retarded!
You
I've seen and heard a lot of criticism on the Boston accent used here by Sonia Cassidy, who plays Duffy. Apparently, New Englanders have said it's awful, over the top, and not accurate at all. A Boston accent is one of the most repugnant sounds I've ever heard. So if any Bostonian was offended by hearing her talk, now you know how the rest of us feels when we get to hear some blowhard from those neck of the woods speak. Put it this way. If a chick from Boston who somehow happened to look like Carrie Underwood came up to me and said, "You want to mess around in the back of my car? I bet I can make you real hard and give you a blowy afterwards." Sorry, Boston Carrie Underwood. Hearing a Boston accent is harrowing and unpleasant, especially coming from a woman. So I'll have to pass, Toots. Unless, of course, we can figure out a way to keep you from talking. I'm sure they're wonderful people, though. As a character, I did like Duffy. She's a smart cookie, and I like the relationship she had with Villanueva, and the way she let Reacher down easy at the end was pretty funny. Elliot is the young newbie. Now, we learned that he screwed up Duffy's surveillance on our last operation, and that's why this current one is off the books. You can tell that this screw-up bothered him, and it seems that he's walking on eggshells now around Duffy. But he does volunteer to be the kidnapper in their plan, and that does endear him to everyone on the team. Unfortunately, he was so green that you kind of knew he was going to do something stupid to jeopardize the mission and/or himself. Well, he did both, the poor bastard.
He gone!
My favorite supporting character this season was Villanueva, the grizzled vet of the group, getting ready to get that sweet retirement. He's loyal to Duffy and does what's right. Just a genuine good guy. For him to put himself in dangerous situations like he did showed his true character. And I gotta be honest here, the way they kept bringing up his retirement and that he's too old for this shit, I thought for sure he was a goner at some point. Especially during a bathroom fight scene in the finale. I was bracing myself for a tough loss, but thankfully I was wrong.
See that? That's your IQ, buddy. 0.
So I thought the entire season was paced pretty well. There wasn't a bad episode by any means. With that being said, my least favorite was the one where Dominique Cole is introduced in a flashback. It was an important part of the plot so we can understand what really happened with Reacher and Quinn, but I didn't care for dedicating pretty much a whole episode to someone who we already knew was dead. Maybe they could have shown flashbacks periodically each episode, showing Cole and Reacher's relationship and then her demise. But at the end of the day, we did get to see who Quinn really is and what Reacher is up against. Speaking of Quinn, I honestly was not too impressed with him as the big bad guy this season. Yeah, he was sadistic, but looking back on everything now, his shit got infiltrated pretty easily. I mean, come on. You had a DEA informant get a secretary job for Beck's operation. The French maid was undercover, and he brought Reacher on board as long as he passed a pre-employment test. Who's in charge of HR and the background checks here? All right, it's Angel Doll. What I like about shows like Reacher is that we get to meet new characters every season. This time around, we got to see the security detail that Reacher joined and all those crazy bastards. Angel Doll was an annoying, talkative go-getter. To his credit, though, he caught on to Reacher pretty quick, and then he died pretty quick.
Why don't we ask Duke what he thinks of what I just want to...
Duke was Beck's head of security. This guy was a prick from the get-go. He didn't like or trust Reacher right away. I thought the way he met his demise was classic, and you could tell Reacher really liked offing that guy. Then there's Paulie. If you saw the trailer leading up to the premiere, you knew that there was going to be a showdown between this gigantor and Reacher. And even if you didn't see it, you knew shit was going to go down when they first interacted at Beck's entry gate. These two, of course, had to have a dick measuring contest right away, and it was amazing to see just how much bigger Paulie was over Reacher. But Paulie wasn't the brightest tool in the shed, and Reacher outsmarted him a few times, including the conclusion of their showdown. So all those guys worked for Beck, at least that was the impression initially. Zachary Beck was played by Anthony Michael Hall, and I thought he did a good job with this role. Certainly better than the last thing I saw him in.
We need all of you. Evil dies tonight.
At first, it appears that Beck may be the main bad guy for the season. He was certainly selling more than rugs. But I never got that supervillain vibe from him in the beginning. He actually cared about his son. He never went into some monologue about how he's going to take over the world, which we pretty much saw in the first 2 seasons. There were times when he was respectful and appreciative towards Reacher, but at the flip of a switch, he would talk to Reacher like he was his bitch. And that's the one thing I've never understood about this show, even though I find it funny every time. Jack Reacher is a behemoth of a human being and a highly skilled badass. Yet we constantly see people, a lot of whom, by the way, couldn't take out a 3rd grade karate student most likely, talk shit to this guy and disrespect him. And more times than not, Reacher doesn't even provoke these clowns. Reacher could snap these people in half and not think twice about it. Anyways, we learn that Beck really isn't running the show. He's working for Quinn, known to them as Julius McCabe, and they're transporting weapons to the highest bidders with bad intentions. And Beck's doing this basically with a figurative gun to his head. We also find out that Quinn was the one who kidnapped his kid, Richie, and cut off his ear.
Here's the left ear. Okay. There's the right. I had to give up my dream of becoming a carpenter because I couldn't.
So we do garner some sympathy for Beck. It doesn't make him a saint, but he wasn't a complete piece of trash either. And you got to feel for the kid too. All Richie wanted to do was go to school, then come home and paint some happy little trees. But because of who his dad is, Rich was the one paying the price. And we've all met those Nepo babies who think their shit don't stink because mommy and daddy could give them whatever they wanted. But this kid was pretty shy, didn't seem to flaunt his wealth, and really was just treated like shit for reasons he had nothing to do with. It was pretty sweet seeing Reacher beat the shit out of those bros in town who fucked with Richie.
You're stupid and ugly.
And finally, we get to Alan Ritchson as Reacher. This guy was born for this role. To his credit, Ritchson delivers more than just a beefed up guy who kills dudes. He displays some subtlety for sure at times. He understands the dryness and succinct nature of Reacher, which usually leads into funny deliveries of some of the lines. My only criticism of his acting in this role is that I haven't really bought into it when Reacher gets sad. If you've seen season 1, you'll probably remember at the end when his mom is dying and Reacher says his final goodbye. When he gets in the car and they have that damn CGI tear roll down his cheek. Seriously?
Action Jackson can't cry. That's what's going down.
This season, when he got out of the barn after seeing what Quinn did to Cole and they zoomed in on his face, man, his reaction just felt a little forced. That's a minor nitpicky thing, and I get it. We don't watch this show to see Reacher moping around. So let's wrap this up with some final thoughts on the whole season. I thought it was very good. The final showdown between Paulie and Reacher was worth the wait. I would have liked to have seen some more interaction between Reacher and Quinn. I get it. The bullet to the skull fucked with his memory. But as dangerous as they made Quinn out to be, he really posed no challenge for Reacher. Even in the flashback Cole episode, Reacher got to him with no trouble. At least there was no hokey, mustache twirling, I'm going to spew out a long-winded explanation of how I outsmarted you this time, Reacher, before I kill you type of monologue.
You sly dog! You got me monologuing! I can't believe it.
That we've seen in the previous seasons. I also would have liked to see the interactions with Reacher and the supporting characters, both good and bad, a little bit more. It seems that this season had less of that than the other two. It's not the end of the world, though, especially with limited episodes and a lot going on. So with all that being said, I would still have to go with season 1, ranked ahead of this season. I really liked them both, but season 1 fleshed out the characters a little bit more. I also felt that season 1 had more of a mystery element to it, where Reacher had to dig a lot more to figure out what was going on. Not so much this season, because Reacher was put right in the middle of it from the start. So overall, I would give this Reacher, season 3, a solid 8 out of 10. All right, I gotta go. The old lady's been hearing me talk about this Reacher fella for a while, and she finally decided to start watching the show. Now she's got some weird look in her eye. God only knows what she has in mind.
Fuck me.